Good evening and welcome this special edition of On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. The opposition doyen, retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, this week he shocked the world. He said he's not going to be on the ballot in 2021. Dr. Kizza Besigye has given President Yoweri Museveni a stiff challenge in the last 20 years for the presidency. Is Dr. Besigye leaving the fight, or is taking a strategic retreat to come back later? Dr. Besigye is my guest this evening, and we are coming to you live from his home in Kasangati. Thank you so much, Dr. Besigye, for giving us the time and the opportunity to allow us once again to come in your beautiful home and speak to you on matters that concern politics in Uganda. Because this week you made that very important decision and you made that very important announcement. I was here 2 weeks before and I asked the same question, which you said was a wrong question. When did you reach that decision?
Well, thank you, Patrick, and very welcome back to our village here in Buyinja, zone of Kasangati Town Council, and a very good evening from here to all of you, NTV viewers and listeners, wherever you may be joining us from. I indeed, in making that statement yesterday, outlined the process through which that decision was made. And indeed, I pointed out that for me, looking at elections in and of themselves as a possible channel of getting a transition from gun rule to people rule ended in 2011. And that is because, frankly, by the time I parted ways with Mr. Museveni, which for my heart, for my understanding, was way back in 1989. That's when it dawned on me that the person I had always called a freedom fighter, that a person I had always believed was fighting all the years he had said he was fighting for the common good, that he was actually fake and was simply out for himself and nothing else. 1989, that's when that view of Mr. Museveni became concretized.
It took you almost 10 years to make that to reach that understanding.
Well, 1989 was only 3 years in the government.
Yeah, but 5 years in the bush.
Yes, well, I was not 5 years in the bush, I was 4. But don't forget, the bush was a totally different story. It was a different environment. We were in a very contained environment where we had the common mission of first and foremost survival, surrounded on all sides by aggressive enemy fire. We were not into analyzing, and of course, talking and acting are totally different things, because even today, frankly, if you heard Museveni speaking from behind the wall and you listen to what he says, you'll get totally lost, because he does the entire opposite of what he says. That's his DNA. If you hear him saying, I'm going to Kasangati from Kampala, know that he is going from Kampala to Jinja. He does not say anything that he means.
You know what I find very intriguing is that it can take you that long for a man with such high, IQ to reach a conclusion that you did, having been able to be the political commissar, having been a minister of State for Internal Affairs, having been the personal doctor of the president, of the man you admired so much.
Well, that's why it takes so much, because I was coming from the entire opposite side of the spectrum. I had too much faith in him. I believed in him. I was, passionately supporting everything he did and said. And then all of a sudden things started happening one by one, and one you start, denial. You are in denial. You think maybe this was a mistake. Maybe you start justifying why this happened, and maybe indeed when you ask, he gives you some reason and you start. But I would like to say even then that I think I was the luckiest of our whole lot, because I was the first, I think, to come to that firm conclusion. Some are still hanging. Mm-hmm. Some are still hanging in there for all you care. Mm-hmm. I saw my brother Ndugurugunda, 30-something years saying, NRM has crystallized democracy. And these were the same characters, that were, cadres of a revolution with talking, high politics of values.
Okay, you said
So the thing is, in 1989, I came to the conclusion that this guy in front of me is fake, and that he's actually on a path that is definitely dangerous for the country. And I think, unfortunately for myself, fortunately again, I think he was able to pick up immediately my disappointment. And that's why in 1990, I was thrown out of government, rather unceremoniously. I never even handed over my office. And then I was taken to the military, and I have had time to talk about the persecution that I really went through during the years under the military, which was really a conscription. I wanted to retire. I couldn't retire. And eventually it was a struggle to retire, which eventually happened in 2000. And so you were asking, when did it occur to me that I should not be on the ballot or have the views that I have indeed expressed to you recently? So, first of all, I never aspired or dreamt of going into elective politics myself. That is first and foremost. Even when I was totally disappointed, when I was totally aware of the challenge that faced the country through this fake leadership, in fact, a very dangerous leadership, even though I was that convinced, it was not in my... and this is sometimes what people really don't appreciate, that I have never set out. It's not part of me to go into politics, competitive. Entire education life, I never sought to any leadership position. Never. And never got one. I never. I was never a prefect. I was never a class monitor. I was never anything. I just was happy to be in class and to understand what was going on in class. And I was a private person. And still am. And my pursuit was in the medical field, and I preferred to remain private until I was violated by the system in the country. The political system in the country violated me, attacked me, humiliated me, tortured me, and that's how, this is what...
It appears, Dr. Besigye, there was a time when you believed that you could change government through the ballot, but you also lost that faith. When did you lose that faith?
So I was just saying that even coming into electoral politics was by some kind of an accident. I had not, even after my disappointment with the regime, I had not set out to go into elective politics. But because I was talking to my colleagues and we were finding out ways of how to challenge what had gone wrong, seriously wrong, and my colleagues with whom we thought it was timely that we now confront this leadership of Mr. Museveni. When they backed out, I think some indeed alerted Museveni about my mobilization against his regime, and that's when I think they decided to now, arrest me. And I announced that I'm going to contest first and foremost as some means of immunizing myself against what was about to happen to me. And then, I threw myself so unpreparedly and unknowingly into an elective environment. That is 201. Mm-hmm. So 201, that happened in October. That happened entirely in October, end of October actually. Mm-hmm. 26th, I think, of October or 28th was when I said I'm going to contest for an election in February. So we had only 3 months. Remember, there were no political parties then. It was just Besigye versus the NRM government. And that is the election that we had. So, and it was the most violent election I think that Uganda has had so far. And following that, the violence and the threats against me increased. That's how I went into exile. In coming back from exile in 2005, I again came I didn't intend to come back until my colleagues, persuaded me to come back. And when I saw the dangers of not coming back, I decided to come back. And that was October, end of October, for another election in February. And as soon as I came back, I was then detained. That's when I was charged with rape, with terrorism, with treason, with illegal possession of guns, and so on. And stayed in jail until January for an election in February. And even when I got out of jail, I was, throughout until the election day, I was on trial in court for rape. So again, that was an election I was involved in, but really not involved in. There was no time to get involved in it. So, but in all these elections, Mark, in spite of all those shortcomings and so on, anybody who lived in Uganda will know the kind of massive support and enthusiasm that was generated in the whole country. And, we have had people, even from the regime side, openly claiming that they know that I won in 2006. They know. But, and in both elections, of course, we went to court, and the story of the courts is well known. Now, so after 2006 and having come back from outside and having gone through those terrible situations of the trials, I was tried for treason, I was tried for terrorism, and we went through all those processes. I made up my mind that these 2 elections that we have had,
yes.
See, at that stage now, I knew we were faced with a determined military junta led by Museveni. I knew he had no intention. That was my conviction. But first of all, the whole country did not have this information. Even many amongst our colleagues, did not believe so. That's why even in 2001, many were saying, but this is his last term, surely. You should give him a benefit of doubt and let him serve out his last term. I told them, guys, can't you see that there is no last term from what he's doing, A, B, C, D? How can this be somebody preparing for transition, for a last term? But they couldn't believe me. They thought I was simply, extreme in my judgment and so on and so forth. So the population was even worse. They did not know who Museveni was like I did, and as I tell you, we are saying it took me so long, but I was lucky because I was closest to him, and indeed, I think my analytical tools are not very blunt. I was able to pick what we were dealing with fairly quickly, faster than most people. So, although I knew what we were standing up against, I indeed wanted the population to appreciate. So create a situation where what I believe is demonstrated. And it was demonstrated in 201 and in 206. But secondly, that faintest, hope that maybe this man, although fake, will somehow, somewhere deep in his sleep, have some remorse about the 500,000 people we left dead during the war. A war that he started because of rigging an election. This was the war. In fact, on the very, very same basis that he is doing, gerrymandering his constituency in Ankole, dodging any area where he may have had support to carve out a constituency that he stood in, which he was always, bitterly talking about, and chose to go to the bush. There were courts. These days when you hear some of these, I hesitate to use strong words, but really nicopropes. You hear them saying, but there are courts, but there is parliament. You can bring this to parliament. All those things were there in 1980.
So you say you lost hope that a ballot cannot change a government in 2011. I'm wondering why you offered yourself in 2016.
So listen, in 201, 206, we had only 3 months. 201, there was no organization allowed outside the NRM. It was a one-party state. 206, we have now won a major victory of allowing people to organize outside the NRM. FDC is formed in 205. We held our first delegates conference, in fact, a day or so after I arrived at the end of 205. So even then, we had not organized FDC internally in the whole country. So I argued within myself that although there is this massive support, we have not had the opportunity to build the organizational infrastructure to underpin all this and protect it so that it can be delivered, that we can maybe struggle. And once the regime realizes that we have a determined people to show their, to assert their will, that maybe even then they may step back. So that's how I go into 2011. Before 2011, I went to every sub-county in this country. In most sub-counties I visited most parishes. We reorganized our structures, created what we call the polling area branch. We had a branch at every polling station. Very well organized. We trained our leaders. We trained, so we were prepared for 2011. We had 5 years to prepare. Mm-hmm. We, of course, didn't have enough resources because even this little money they give parties now was not there then. And because of the intimidation, fundraising is a problem. But we tried to fundraise. And for the election of 2011, in spite of all those challenges, we were able to sponsor all candidates that turned up to be nominated on FDC ticket, and so on and so forth. So what I witnessed in 2011 confirmed to me that the problem is not organization, that the problem is not even funding and all these.
What is the problem?
The problem is simply the gun rule.
The gun was still there in 2016. Why did you offer yourself again?
Yes, and that is why, we are unfortunate in this country that, we hear people calling themselves political analysts and this and that, but they never really follow the nitty-gritties of what goes on in the politics. If anybody was following what our messages have been in these elections, they would have noticed a world of a difference in our messaging before 2011 and after 2011. Remember, before 2011, we were emphasizing policy, what it is we can change in this country, in agriculture, in health, in governance itself, and how expenditure of government. We are emphasizing that. We are saying people, Uganda can be better. Turn up and vote. We were emphasizing people becoming voters. That was not so in 2016. My message in 2016, all over, starting with the Electoral Commission. I went to the Electoral Commission and told them on my nomination, I have not come here because I believe you are the Electoral Commission. I am going to go through this process by defiance, telling them to their faces. And it went through like that. My message in 2011 was never, this is education. No. I was telling the people that I have not come to ask you for your vote this time. I was telling them that that's not why I'm here. Because you have no votes, you people before me, you have no vote. I cannot ask you for what you don't have. You vote is a decision making. You have never decided anything and it happens. You don't have that power.
So now,
I have come to ask you to work together to fight for our power. And remember, I was telling them how that can be done. That first of all, know that all these things around you won't change unless you fight to have influence yourself, that you can speak and be heard, that you can make a decision and it is respected, that this is indeed your country. And once you have made that determination, you must organize. Disorganized people never fight. And we introduced Power 10 in 2016. Power 10 was a new concept. And indeed, but we had very little time even then to popularize this and to get people to understand what exactly it was all about. But nonetheless, we had different results in 2016. And indeed, we have built on that. We had different results.
So now, okay, Dr. Besigye, I've tried to listen to you so that the people of Uganda and those watching can actually understand, because you've been in this for more than 20 years. I think it is fair that we listen, because for the first time now you're saying you're not going to be on the ballot. So it's important people can understand that track, where you've come from and where we are now. And that's why I was not trying to interrupt you, because you're trying to recap. But look, you've tried the ballot. It didn't work. You've tried the walk to work. It didn't work. You've tried defiance. It has not worked. You have tried Power 10. It has not worked. You've tried many things that have not worked. The other day you said you have plan B. What is it?
So first of all...
What is it, Dr. Besigye?
First of all, Patrick, I would like our viewers to understand that this is not a problem for Besigye. That this problem must be solved by Besigye. Absolutely not. This is actually an existential problem for this country.
We are facing an existential problem?
Absolutely. Even Africa, we face a dire existential problem. There is absolutely no way we are going to enjoy this wonderful weather, wonderful soils, fresh water running all over the place freely, and we have absolutely no capacity, no power that we can claim and defend our country. It's not going to happen. And it's already happening. People are being thrown off their land. The land is being taken by Chinese, by Indians, by Europeans, by, in cahoots with some of their agents who control guns here. That is already happening. So this is a challenge for all Ugandans. It's unfair to say you have been doing this, you have been doing this. What are you going to do? It's not just my business. And especially for the young people. Uganda is a young country. Young people must interrogate themselves how they are going to survive. You know, there is a saying that every generation has a mission, must have a mission. Sometimes I hear young people, you know, say, this is our time, young people. Fine, it's your time. Your time to do what? You must be clear what your mission is as a generation. We served our generation, and we were clear that we must fight for democratization. That is the power. That power must go to the people. That was our mission. In going to war, in doing whatever, our mission was transfer power. We have failed up to now for that to happen.
So in other words, your generation is out.
Well, our generation...
In terms of trying to...
Our generation is now a minority. There is absolutely no doubt. The majority of Ugandans are younger generations. The question is, what are they pursuing? What is the pursuit in Uganda? Is it to remove Museveni for another leader? Are we pursuing a change of leadership? Are we pursuing a change of generation from older generation to younger generation? And these questions, you hear them, people talking about them casually. So will it be all right if Museveni goes and Muhoozi comes? Because that is a generational change. Are we talking about just age? What are we talking about? Now, my very clear assertion, and we should have a frank debate in the country, my very clear assertion is that the pursuit, the challenge, the outstanding fundamental challenge in the country is shifting of power from minority groups that hold it through use of coercion to the majority of Ugandans that are marginalized. That is the cardinal challenge. So the question
so how do the people of Uganda do that?
So the question is...
What advice do you give to those who believe in your brand of politics, or those who are watching or listening to you now? So what do they do?
So like I say, let's have a structured debate. First of all, is my assertion correct that what we require is actually change of power from narrow groups that control it with coercion, with force, to marginalize the greater majority of the population? We should have a debate on that, whether that is the problem. Because indeed some think that it is removing it from the old people to young people. Some think it is removing it from Banyankwere to other people. Some think it is, you know, so what is it? What is the fundamental challenge? We should have a structured debate on that. Having agreed, if we came to the same conclusion like I have, that the fundamental challenge is gun rule and how we transit from that to people rule, then the question is, what is the strategy?
Okay, Dr. Besigye, hold on to your point there because you're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara, and my guest, or should I say I'm the guest, because we are coming to you from Buyinja village or ward in Kasangati Town Council, and we have retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. He has given us some kind of a history of the struggle in the last, at least the last 20 years, and where that has brought us where we are right now. But now I just want to know, there are people, the pulse of the city or the pulse of Uganda is that, look, Dr. Besigye, you have found yourself on very unfamiliar territory. We are having this scientific kind of campaigns. Perhaps you do not even understand what it is like. I'm not saying, I'm not challenging your intelligence, but how real it's going to work. Fundraising is very difficult. Perhaps you cannot even travel abroad or within. You have a young man who has come up with such momentum. He's another political gladiator. And you're like, if I get into this, the numbers in terms of percentage they could actually get could go down. So the safe bet is to avoid some kind of a political embarrassment, you stay out.
You see, again, Patrick, frankly, I have absolutely no intention of persuading Ugandans about what it is that advised my departure beyond what I have said. and, you know, they are entirely entitled, everyone, to their own interpretations and their own opinions. But what I continue to dwell on is that this is not about me, has never been, cannot be. It will be extremely wrong, missing the point, to think that this is about Kyagulanyi or any of us. Absolutely not. This is about everybody. You are talking about the circumstances after COVID, especially the lockdown that COVID imposed on the country. That lockdown has accelerated the dangers of people's existence that I talked about, the existential threat. I don't know whether you are hearing people burning themselves, setting themselves ablaze. I don't know whether you had heard this before. Ugandans putting themselves on fire and dying. About 6 have already burnt themselves dead in Kampala here. That was after a young man burnt himself right inside the police station in Masaka. Suicide, the rate of suicide. Yesterday there was a report by police. The rate of suicide, which is going up. The kind of desperation the country is in. Now, if you dwell on Besigye and you don't interrogate where this came from, what caused this, how will you know how it goes away? So, if you reduce this to Besigye's ego or Besigye's pursuits, maybe ambitions, no, it's about the country and what has caused it. This is why I told you that I would want...
So this country, Dr. Besigye, this country that you say is captured, and the people you were trying to convince, I asked the question before, what do you advise them to do to liberate themselves?
Precisely. So I said the structured debate I would want us to have is first, what is the problem? Or what is it we are trying to change? Because even when you say we are forces of change, you may be wanting to change it, not the same thing. You know, what is it we want to change? And I have told you what I think should change. Control of the country by what you call capture, by a small group that uses force to capture everybody and marginalize everybody, monopolize resources, and use ruthless means to suppress everybody. That is the problem, as I understand it. So that everybody else has no rights, has no freedoms, has no say. That is the problem, as I understand it. The question is, what do we do about it? And that's where we had reached. What is the strategy to get rid of this? Shall we get rid of this using an election? Shall we get rid of this taking guns like we did and going to Ruwero? Shall we get rid of this using any other means? That is a very important conversation we must have as a country, especially if we get to the conclusion that I say is the case. Because if you say people have no power, they are marginalized, they have no influence in the country, they have no say, they don't control their resources. If that is the problem, that they have no power, how will they get power? Because if you say, what, you have no power, what is the power they don't have? And I have previously crystallized it to you, what I think the power we don't have. That it's in largely 4 areas. That we have no power over our resources. We don't control the resources of Uganda. Those who have power use our resources entirely as they want. The other day we borrowed money for COVID, about 2.5 trillion. More than half was sorted off and taken by Mr. Museveni through disguises that it is classified What is classified in managing COVID? That you take half the money we have borrowed, which we are going to pay, and then all of a sudden you are distributing bicycles to LC, your NRM chairman all over the country. Where do you raise the money from, you NRM? They have never filed, returns, which we are all entitled to read their returns in the Electoral Commission, how they raise the money they spend, So the fact that we have no control over resources is a matter that I believe everybody understands. Two, that we have no control over decision making. And if anybody had a doubt, you saw what happened in Tojikwatako, when the whole country was saying, don't change our constitution. And Mr. Museveni, shamelessly, in broad daylight, under cameras, brings soldiers from State House or from President's office. They descend under camera, enter Parliament without any invitation. The Speaker protests. They enter Parliament and cause mayhem in Parliament in broad daylight. That treasonable act has never happened in Uganda. Otherwise, this talk we are having should not be there. Mr. Museveni would never be on the ballot. We had sorted out this in the Constituent Assembly. But can we make a constitution? Do we have power to make laws? Do we? The people with power are the ones who make laws, not people without power. So the constitution that was made by people without power has changed to reflect what those with power
And what's the
believe.
third area?
The third area is implementation of those decisions. Whether you can, who has power to implement? Like if you indeed make a budget, who implements it? Who decides what happens? All this is just like in your house. The people who have power in your house make decisions in your home. They control the wealth of the home, those who have power in the home. They make decisions, they implement them. The fourth is deciding who is wrong and who is right. Adjudication. Do the courts have power? I heard that my brother Alfonsi Owinidoro has just been named the Chief Justice. He is not Chief Justice of anything, That's the truth. Anybody who has been will tell you. He will be Chief Justice in any matter that Mr. Museveni has no interest in. You have seen the military attack courts. They did so in my case because it was, again, politics. Attacked court. Blood was flowing in the Chief Justice's office. So, if you have no power to decide, what is an election? Is it a decision-making process? If you say we have no power, I have no power to decide.
So I wonder, what is the strategy? Because the other day you talked of Plan B.
So the strategy, this is why I say, the strategy, and sometimes people mix strategy and tactics, or what we call main strategy and minor strategies. So in any process of doing something, you must find the process that will guide or lead whatever you want to do up to when it is done. If we want to change from gun rule to people rule, the method we use from the beginning to the end, what happens, what is a constant in that process is the main strategy. Under the main strategy, you can have minor strategies. For example, when we were in the bush fighting, our main strategy was armed struggle, protracted people's war. That was our main strategy. But it did not mean that we did not, for example, conduct elections. In our liberated areas, we actually conducted elections for leaders. But you could not say that our strategy was to use the election of local leaders to change the government in Kampala. No. What would cause the government in Kampala to change was war that we were conducting. But under that, we did dialogue. There was dialogue. You cannot say that the strategy was dialogue. So the strategy
A multi-pronged strategy.
Yes, so the strategy of ending capture, forceful capture of power, the strategy of ending that is fighting. That is the main strategy. The other thing you now need to decide in that main strategy is fighting in what way. And there are two main ways. You can fight using lethal tools, like we did in Ruero, armed fighting, warfare, armed warfare, or you can fight without using arms. The British were defeated and left Uganda by fighting of the people of Uganda. They didn't take up guns, but they defeated the British who were controlling the world, the British Empire.
But you see, you tried to energize the people of Uganda. You came up with so many strategies. One of them was defiance, walk to work, P10 and all these kind of things. They were not a form of fighting using guns, but still, you never gained momentum to actually cause change.
So
you have used all this, the tricks up your sleeve.
Yes. First of all, again, I must at every stage underscore the fact that this is a problem for Ugandans.
Yes, but there's always a leader. Yes, but you have offered leadership.
Yes, I am offering leadership.
And that's why I have to ask you, because you have offered leadership.
I am not offering it to people that are not participating. They must be participatory. So, if anybody says, by the way, that strategy is not working, I am all ears to hear.
So you have had so many strategies.
Yes, so what I'm saying is...
But they have not worked.
Yet. You see, again, it's like if a strategy is going to work, there is a prescribed time that if it has not worked by this time, we were in the bush for 5 years. Some spend 30, some 50 in armed struggle. You know? So, when do you say they have failed? But even if it's not armed struggle, even in your own personal endeavors, you know, I'm sure, Patrick, there are many things you want to achieve, which you set off to achieve from the time you were an adult. Maybe you want to have a big farm and live a comfortable life, have a swimming pool and have all kinds of things. There are things, you have dreams. When will you say, I have now failed, I think I am a failure, this is no longer possible? No. You continue waking up every day to exert yourself maximally until you achieve your goals. I have told you that in this case, we are talking about life or death, existence or perishing. So we have no luxury to talk about failure. The people of Uganda, I mean, not me. Me, I have, at least, even when I go, if I went tonight, I would not go lamenting that I did not do what I needed to do, what I felt should be done. As long as I'm alive. And this is what I was telling people, you know, who think that the struggle is an election. In fact, a fake election. So now, that is the struggle.
The people
of Uganda.
You are like-minded people. I hope that you are like-minded people who are now opposing the NRM government seem to think that the ballot has a solution to change the affairs of our country. So I wonder how you're going to work with them.
For example, there is nothing wrong, you see. I told you there. Different strategies, different tactics, and so on. But it is important, especially for platforms that are serious on causing change in Uganda, it's important for us to have a very direct conversation, intense internal conversation on the strategy. Because if we are pulling in different directions, it undermines the collectivity.
But that's what is exactly happening.
Yes. You know, first of all, you know, our people tend to become despondent over nothing. There is no process that doesn't have countercurrents. Every process generates countercurrents. You have opposing forces within any process. that does not mean that the process has stalled. You keep on going with the difficulties. So in every struggle, there are struggles within a struggle. One of the main struggles within a broad struggle is agreeing on what to do. Even when we were in the bush, there were those conversations with different forces. You had the UFM, which had its own approach to doing things. You had the Moses Alis up north and so on, who had their own way of doing things, the former soldiers, Uganda Army and so on. But it's important that if you want to achieve your objective quickly, you harmonize. Not harmonizing doesn't mean you don't achieve.
So
you still achieve.
There are people in this election or in this race who would want to see Dr. Kizza Besigye behind probably the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi going, supporting him because they believe now all roads are leading to Magere and not Kasanga now that you are not even on the ballot because they seem to have the political clout and the momentum if you are out of the race. So are you willing, since you are all within the forces of change, if you agree what change that you want, to go behind him and support him? So,
first of all,
Dr. Besigye, do you find that hard to answer? Are you willing to go behind him and support him?
This is exactly what I want to answer. That first of all, I want you to know that even as you go into the election, you can be in the election and have a message that undermines what I am doing. So being in the election, and even when we are in TDA actually, part of our disagreement was, what is this election about? As I have told you in 2016, I was very clear that the election was about preparing people to fight for their right. Not going to talk about schools and this and that. That was my clear view in 20, and I raised it in the TD. I said, what are we going in for? Now, if, for example, Mbabazi was going in believing he was going to be announced and there will be a ceremony in Kororo to hand over power to him with a manifesto that he's going to implement and so on, whereas I don't believe so, then I have no business being supporting him. Absolutely none. So that's why it's important in harmonizing where you are going and how you are going. For example,
isn't that too late now?
No, it's not. It's never too late. The campaigns don't kick off, at least in the presidential elections, until November. We have a lot of time to discuss. So I can tell you without the slightest fear of contradiction that I will support all candidates that advocate to the people of Uganda the urgency of liberation. And that...
But these candidates, some of them are going to be in competition. If you have, for example, Patrick Amuriat or Ambassador Waswa Birigwa against Robert Kyagulanyi, how do you support those when they are competing?
When you have what?
Those candidates you're going to support, some of them will be in competition for the same position.
No, I don't support people who are competing. You see, again, that's also another thing. If you remember my first question, what are we doing? Are we fighting to change leadership or to change a system? Are we fighting to cause qualitative change in Uganda or just change?
Even changing system,
change manpower.
There are some people who are offering leadership in trying to change the system. So you'll have to show support to those individuals who are giving leadership.
Yes, so...
That will cause you trouble because you may find it difficult to choose where to go.
So I'm answering your question in two stages. I said, first of all, I will, without any hesitation, support the right message, what I consider to be a message that is aligned to what I believe will cause change in our country. And that is telling the people of Uganda that we must all unite to get ourselves out of prison. That is the most urgent thing. so that we have control of our money, our decision making, our justice system, and so on. Anybody, so if all of them, for example, are agreed on where we want to go, the second thing that I am advocating for is to have a united platform. If all of us are talking about freeing ourselves, why then must you, dissipate, break up the power that we have? Because as we know, when you unify power, political power, it multiplies. If you have 5 tons, I have tons, and we unite them to, I have 5 tons, you have 5 tons, in politics you get 30 tons. Unity is a lot of power. So my second advocacy in this process, and that's why I did not want to be a candidate, because then I would be one of the competitors, as you are saying. My second...
That unity that is so important has eluded you so much. It looks like the Holy Grail. You cannot get to it.
You see...
In the opposition.
Unity amongst people with vested interests is not easy to achieve. When, as I have told you, somebody indeed wants to become a president, wants to become this, but I am not talking, the reason I'm even mentioning this here is that this is not about the leaders. It should not be about unity of Muntu, Kyagulanyi, Tumukunde, Besigye. I'm not now in the, I don't know who, the Rwomushana, I don't know all these people. It's not about that. The people of Uganda, who are the biggest sufferers in all this, must drive, must force us. They should not be quiet in all this. Because as I've told you, they are burning themselves out of desperation. All of us will have food in our homes, not them. So the most urgent matter is the people of Uganda. And if they want to stop burning themselves, at least let them burn us with the problem. Don't burn yourselves, burn us into sense that it's not about us, it's about you. And there is no reason, there is absolutely, so the starting point, as I have said, is what is it we are trying to achieve? 2, how do we want to achieve it? 3, how do we get together to achieve it? If we are united about this, change will come in 1 week. In 1 week, there would be change here. This is a regime, actually, I have never seen dictators as weak as this Museveni dictatorship. It's possible, I can tell you, all dictators in any case, all of them, by the time they collapse, they are hollow things. They are just standing because people fear them, they think they are something. When anybody pokes a finger, you see the whole thing just, you saw Mobutu here. Mobutu kept on ruling Congo when he was long gone, physically and otherwise. But the Congolese were totally afraid of Mobutu. Kuku was a banger.
But it had to take the intervention of Rwanda,
precisely.
Of Uganda, and other
and you know how people were so terrified that Rwanda should not even dare touch Mobutu. I know what happened. Why do you think even Uganda couldn't go there when Rwanda went? They thought Mobutu was a terrible thing. But when Rwanda entered, the whole thing, it had long gone. This is what is happening here. You hear people, the strong man of which strong man? When you have no economy. Even the fuel Museveni puts in his vehicle now, he's borrowing. He has no money of his. This money which came from the World Bank the other day, it is the one supporting the budget to pay soldiers to beat us up. That is, he has no money to pay his own soldiers. That is no longer a system you can talk of.
But you can sit and say all these things and you can make sense.
It's not just
but
saying.
But end up making sense to yourselves. There was an election just a few days ago, or the youth election.
Oh, you are back at it
But
again.
no, but you know, this is what is happening.
You see,
79% of the youth leaders are in the NRM party.
You see, please,
Dr. Besigye, you cannot just speak out what you want and that's what you emphasize. I also have to tell you what has happened.
Yes, but disabuse yourselves. This Keita man of Mali, the Keita, Boubacar Keita, who was just, I don't know whether he's in jail now or wherever he is at the moment. How much did he get in the elections the other day? What is happening to him now? Where is the 85% of people who voted for him? Because you see, you talk about voting, electoral processes, as if, you know, again, you have power to decide. Once we agree on that basic, that we have no power to decide, then you cannot talk about people deciding. Because that's what elections are. Who compiles the register? Tell me. Who compiles the register of these youth? Who manages that election and the process and compiles the results and announces? Who? Did you hear Mr. Museveni? Even in the process of the election, the youth process had even begun, sacking senior staff of the Electoral Commission. Did you hear that?
So do you want to dispute the fact that the NRM came on top in the youth elections just a few days back?
You know, if you have ears to waste, you can listen to that trash. Because there is...
It is a fact, Dr. Besigye.
Which fact?
That they came on top. That they have...
That
even some areas that are supposed to be opposition stronghold, that they have serious inroads. In fact, this is even following a survey that I told you about the other day.
You see, as I told you, this is the regime that would be totally ashamed under normal circumstances to even say those kinds of things. Mr. Museveni did not get 5% of the vote in 1980. 5% of his home area, not of Uganda. Of his home area, where he is born. He didn't get 5%. Is that how desperately unpopular he was? Is that what he would like to tell us? That Mr. Museveni, the freedom fighter, the minister of, I don't know, whatever, you know, that he only managed less than 5%? I beg your pardon. So if you are the same Mr. Museveni, you know, massaging yourself, that now I have, I don't know, 70%, and you expect people to listen to that kind of junk, you know? So, you know, these elections you are talking about, you have been here, you know how they are conducted. LC1 elections, I had them claiming they had 90% of you know, results in LC1 elections. Where are those elections? I beg your pardon. You know,
Dr. Besigye, there has been a situation where, as political parties in opposition, have even failed to bring out people to compete in some areas.
Yes.
And many areas.
Of course. Let me ask you, today, to become a candidate, to be in parliament, you need 3 million shillings. Okay? How many teachers, very respectable teachers, that made Mr. Museveni speak English, how many can afford 3 million for nomination? You know? And if teachers of their country cannot be nominated, what kind of electoral process is that? Is it exclusive? You know? If to be elected now, you know, who doesn't know that it's about what you pay? And people will eat the money indeed, because they are starving. They have, I told you, this system that serves a handful and marginalizes the entire population. Now after COVID, the people burning themselves are the ones you think will not take 500 shillings to stand behind you. If I'm burning myself because I have no nothing to take back home. So we are in a situation, and this is why it's not possible to have free and fair elections before this junta, this terrible junta goes off and the country is reset in some formal manner, structurally, so that we have institutions that are independent, but also that people at least have some sense of social security, you know. And this is very easy to attain, very, very easy to attain, that somebody can be assured at least of some health, of some food on the table, and basics. But if you are in a country now, these millions who are starving today, starving literally, whom they are chasing out of houses. Do you know how many people are on the verandas? You had, the regime saying the police should not evict people. But why shouldn't I evict somebody from my house if that's what I depend on to survive? If you have not made any arrangement for me, who built the house, who has a loan in the bank, the loan has not stopped trying to take my house, how would you stop me from claiming rent? You have not paid any attention to these problems.
Okay.
So if you have desperate people who have nowhere to sleep, how do you ask them to vote?
Hold on to your points there, Dr. Kizza Besigye. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amar. My guest is retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. I saw you 2 days ago when you were making that announcement that you want to be on the ballot. I saw young people, men and women who support the FDC and members of FDC who are so emotional that actually didn't want even to speak. They only wanted you to hear one thing, that you should be on the ballot. And if you are not on that ballot, then they no longer have almost no respect. They didn't want even to hear, and they wanted you to get off the stage from where you could speak. You can see the disappointment in the eyes of the people in FDC, and I'm sure even members of parliament. For those who want to go into leadership, they think they have lost the energy that you would have created if you're on the ballot by going there and maybe adding to what they could do to go to parliament. FDC as a party is going to fizzle out if you're not careful.
Well, Patrick, I've not heard that for the first time about the FDC dying. When I stepped down as a party leader in 2012, that was, I suspect even that time we must have talked. And that was the question. FDC is going to disintegrate. In fact, not even before then, when I first contested with Muntu, was said, you are going to break up the party. How can you compete, in the same party, and you are, competing so passionately? You are going to split the party is going to disappear. We contested, we went to Nambole, we had elections 3 times. And FDC became stronger.
Where is Muntu now?
Well, Muntu is where he wants to be, but not that.
Yes, but that shows you that the cracks emerged and then they became wider and then part of FDC.
Yes.
In fact, he didn't go alone, he went with FDC members.
Of course.
That's what they meant.
But the question is, you see, it's a dynamic process. Parties are a dynamic process. Some leave, others come. Because many have since joined us. When he left, we didn't have Mulod and others, So it's a dynamic process. But people have always been spelling doom if this is going to end. So when I stepped down, in fact, the emotion, again, amongst our members, even leaders, was identical to what I saw the other day. People saying, no, you cannot go, not at this time, no. The people were very, very emotional. But you see, it's not unexpected. people, human beings, are creatures of habit. We are all creatures of habit. We get used to something and we don't want to change, and we fear to change. Even every day, you go to homes and you find, don't sit there, that is the chair of so and so. Even somebody is just attached to a chair, he does not feel comfortable unless he sits in that chair. Or a cup, that he drinks, this is the cup, this is his cup or her cup. You are attached to a cup, you are attached to this. The reason people fall into that kind of things is that they derive comfort from what they know, what they are used to. So we are creatures of habit. Now, if we have been working together, I have been a leader, they are used to my way of working, they know how to reach me, they know how to interact with me in particular circumstances. They don't want that to change. They feel that change is going to harm everything. Even in families, that's why separation, becomes a problem. Even when you are just leaving home, going to work, you see people crying and so on and so forth, because we have been used to each other's company, and so we don't want that to change. So there is a bit of that in what happens. Secondly, there is a bit of fear of the unknown. Like you are saying, everybody knows, for example, how we campaign, how we are able to mobilize and so on, and they don't know what will happen if that is not there. It may get better, but they don't know. And it's that fear, actually, that, some of the dictators dwell on, like Mr. Museveni. You hear them saying, you don't change a winning team, but you can even win better. Why do you think that you are the last of the winning? If somebody creates an impression that what they have done is, the best that should happen, no, don't interfere with it. No, life should be, change should always be there. So there is a bit of fear of the unknown. But let me tell you, and when I left FDC, and I gave them good reasons, I did not leave the struggle. And some indeed thought that I was going to fizzle and go into thin air and disappear. I am still here. It's 8 years. I don't hold any office. That's why I laugh when I hear people saying, you step down. From what? They say aspiring to contest is in itself something one should step down from. That's why I tell you that we have a challenge as a country in terms of, how people comprehend things. So, even when you step down, people will soon be comforted by what they see happening. Some people now expect that maybe I have abandoned the struggle. Indeed, some headlines, Besigye is gone, Besigye is out. I am not going to contest elections, but I will fight for my freedom as vigorously as ever, maybe even more. I told them that what happened in 2016, indeed, I felt uncomfortable with. Managing an election and managing a disobedience campaign.
So now, Dr. Besigye,
so,
now you appear like somebody who has taken a pause, a strategic retreat. Do we expect a political comeback of 2026? Because we have seen these things happen. In Senegal, it took, I think, Abdoulaye Wade. He got like on the seventh attempt.
What?
You have only attempted four times. A political comeback is possible for Besigye 2026.
Again, political is maybe
on the ballot is what I mean.
In inverts, being in electoral politics.
Yes, that's what I exactly mean.
Because I'm not retreating from political engagement. I am not. I am in fact hoping to intensify my engagement in whatever form or manner that I can towards freedom. Because, Mark, I told you at the beginning of this program, what sucked me into these processes was freedom. When I was violated, abused, and so on, and realized that I live in a country where I'm a total prisoner.
You know, listening to you, Dr.
So-
Besigye, listening to you, and and I've followed you as a reporter, even in the campaigns. I see, and my gut is telling me you are taking a strategic retreat. In 2026, you launch a political comeback in elective politics. Is this it?
Let me be abundantly clear, and I have always been, except that again, people simply don't, pay keen interest on some of the things that they comment on. I have always said that I came into politics to advance freedoms and rights that can engender that we are all equal under the law, that we have equal opportunities, and that we have all the full range of rights. That is, and this is not, something so difficult to reach. So, I have always said that, which I crystallized to you as a transition. If NRM had managed the transition as we had expected, NRM was supposed to be a transitional mechanism. If it had managed the transition through that constitution-making process, instead of the constitution being an instrument of transition, they made it an instrument of entrenchment, made NRM a system. It's a permanent system in our constitution even today, that there is a movement system. Nonsense, That is where they went wrong. If they had conducted a transition and conducted free and fair elections, I would never have had any reason to get into elective politics, as I explained at the beginning. My end into this, why I say that I will fight till we have freedom or till I expire. I mean it. As long as we have not had that transition to freedom, I will fight. What kind of tactics we use in the struggle is immaterial. What is material is whether you are pursued and whether you have got it. Because if there is dialogue, I will participate in dialogue. There is nothing to stop me if it was realized that election is going to advance this struggle. I am not allergic to participating in anything at all that leads to transition. But if anybody ever finds me engaged in any electoral activity post-transition, then I will plead guilty to being the greatest liar.
But I've seen you try to convince people. People have coalesced around you. I'm talking about men and women of substance in our country. And before you know it, they keep moving away. I can give you so many names, especially from the Forum for Democratic Change. Big names like Augustine Ruzindana. You never hear him out. People like Jack Sabiti. People like Musinguzi Garuga. People like, John Kazora. People like, I could even add, Yonebamanya Moshega. That you've lost these people. They are out there. They are still energetic. They can still campaign. If they have been so close to you, there's something I suppose they could have seen in FDC and they're like, no, this is not it.
You see,
and you can tell me you have new entrants like the Lord Mayor, but you cannot.
You see, I cannot certainly pretend to speak on behalf of any of my colleagues who may have chosen to act differently from what I am doing. I'm sure everybody must have very good reasons.
What I speak of them is that at one point I saw them actively involved. They could still be with you or not, but when you see that the energy levels have gone down, I'm asking, what happened.
Yeah, what I'm telling
And
you.
these are very responsible
Yes,
Ugandans
you are
with
not,
high name recognition that we are giving you some kind of clout and value to your party.
You are not hearing my answer. My answer is that I cannot really speak on their behalf as to why they may have eased the level of their participation in what we are doing. And I said, I'm sure each and every one of them has a reason. I know that they don't have the same reasons, certainly.
I remember, for example, when you had just come from South Africa, from exile, I think it was 206 or 205. There are people who were advising you that, look, maybe you have to tone down on the message. By then, I'm sure you heard people telling you, Dr. Besigye is angry, is aggressive, is all that. And if I can remember well, I think the Honorable Regan Okumu should have been one of them, was telling you, okay, can you tone down the message?
You see again, Patrick, I will say it for the nth time, that this is not about me. You know, I wake up every day to do what I can in the way that I can. And everybody should do the same for their country. Wake up and do what you can the way you can, you know? And if what we are trying to do coincides, we work together. If it doesn't, we work separately, but working for the same outcome. And so I don't think that it should be really a task of anybody to explain themselves why their participation may have changed. First of all, this thing has taken quite a long time. It has taken a toll on many of our people. You don't seem to appreciate that. You see, again, you know, I would like to inform our dear countrymen that participating in the spaces we do, doing whatever we do, and we don't do it, you know, to seek anybody's endorsement or you know, applauding. No, we do it on conviction. And so we are happy to suffer whatever we suffer, because we do it on conviction that this will help us, among others. But what we do, I can assure you, has a huge cost. There is absolutely no doubt. It has a huge cost on all fronts. On the family, you know. Some time back, you know, we were living together as a family. What happened to my family? You know, when I was in South Africa, having run away, by the time I came back, they had also run away. Having been in prison 7 times within a short spell of time. So there is a cost from the family level to the socio-economic level. You lose your means of income. You lose your means of, you know, you are tormented. You are tortured physically, emotionally, and so on. There is a huge cost.
But your
how
family,
long?
But your dear wife has advanced in terms of serving the world at a global scale. Head of Oxfam, head of UNAIDS, and with the support of the government of Uganda, endorsing her name.
You know, they say that akugoba yakuwekubo. She did not resign her seat in parliament because she wanted to go and get a job. The job she was doing in Addis Ababa was not a job she preferred to parliament. Even when she ran away, actually, she had not got it. But, you know, it's the cost, I'm telling you. Even while they were still here, you know, our son was arrested. He was all over arrested at the Rwanda border, stayed the whole day at Mbarara police. A young boy, 3 years. You know, so that was something that you think is, you know, seeing soldiers come to the house all the time. You know, one of the times they said there was a pistol in the house and so on and so forth. So there is a cost at a personal level, at a you know, survival level, whatever you are doing. You know, I had a thriving farm here before I ran away. I had a thriving farm, very big, you know, dairy activity here. I had, you know, which is gone. You know, whatever else I was trying to do, ceased. You hear people now say, Besigye is rich, he owns petrol stations. I don't own any petrol station. The Zambia station that I run it as a dealer. It is not my station. I run it as a dealer, mpakasi. And squeezing any money out of it is not a joke. Those who have run petrol stations know it. So, it's not easy to live, and that's why, indeed, even when you are talking about you have no candidates, you have no this, who wants to be in that kind of space? Who wants to be a candidate for FDC and be terrorized by the LDUs, by all these people, you know, be in prison, be all their assets be destroyed and so on? Who is willing to make that sacrifice? So, that's why there is a lot of movement. And I'm not assigning what I am saying to those who depart. I said everybody lives for different reasons. But it's not a comfortable place to be. Certainly not.
Let me use this example, and I've seen athletes do that, especially those who involve in high jump. You actually don't stand with the rope so that you can jump vertically. You go, you take steps back, and then you can gain momentum, and then maybe you can be able to jump. Is this a tactic you're doing? You're taking some steps back so that you can come with momentum and maybe jump whatever hurdle you see?
Well, the reason I am doing what I am doing is because I am convinced that it is the best for the outcome I want. So certainly...
Of changing the system?
Yes, I'm convinced. You know, yesterday I was telling... the other day I was telling our colleagues at the headquarters that part of the constant, essential tactic of survival in any struggle is to change cover, not stay in the same place for a very long time. Because once you are known that that's where you are, you will be surrounded and finished. You must be mobile. You must be mobile. You know, Mao Zedong is famously, you know, quoted to have said that there are three constants in a struggle: constant mobility, constant vigilance, and constant suspicion. You must suspect each and everything around you. You must be vigilant, you must never relax, and you must be mobile so that they don't build rings around you. So, if I make a shift, it's because I have made an assessment that this is the best in the interest of the cause that I am pursuing. And I'm genuinely convinced that doing what I am doing, while other people are engaged in what they are doing, will be good. You have seen, for example, while even people are just speculating. He wants to come, he doesn't want to come, he wants to come. And then you would see, you know, a tyranny, people trying to hit me, you know. I haven't even said anything. These are people with whom you share an aspiration, but for different reasons, some obviously very, very confused, you find...
As you talked of internal struggle within the
Yes,
struggle.
absolutely. You find that your presence diverts others into actions that are detrimental to what all of you want to achieve. So if you make that appreciation, yes, stepping into a different space then may be helpful, not only in terms of what you yourself want to do, but in terms of helping maybe reduce the potential for being diverted to do other things by the other people that are in the struggle.
Okay, now, there seems to be a generational shift. You know, I can maybe use the example in your home district of Rukunjiri, and to be exact, Rukunjiri municipality. The primaries have shown us that there actually there's a groundswell of young people who are taking on, you know, incumbents who are popular, who have been in the party for long. There's a young man who has wrestled to the ground, I think Roland, and even another female giant in the name of Ingrid in the primaries. And now in Rukunjiri, I'm hearing those who have lost the primaries want even to come as independents, you know, and run. I wonder what that talks of the internal politics of FDC.
Well, I think the question mixes several elements. First, you talk of generational.
Yes, I mean, with all respect, I think Warren is young, in my view.
You talk of generational shift. I have already told you that Uganda is actually a country of children, not even young people. It's a country of children. More than, about half of our citizens, half are below 15. So those below 18, I think are about 60%. Below 18, children, about 60%. So it's accurate to call Uganda a country of children, not even young people. So, of course, young people, therefore, form the biggest bulk of our population, which is why, you know, expectedly, they will be in all places. And, you know, very rightly. But, you know, what, as I pointed out earlier, what one would be wise to interrogate is what the young people are doing. Because they can be in all these places without a clear mission. That's what would be dangerous. What is their mission? Because being young alone does not make you even serve other young people. We had the young President Kabila here. We have had the young President Yahya Jammeh. We had the young Sergeant Doe. We have had, you know, these were people who got to become presidents in their 20s. All these people I'm talking about, many. But did their presidencies, for example, serve young people or even their countries at all? So it's not about age alone. It must be interrogating whether the young people are stepping forward to advance a particular mission. That is very, very important. Having said that, returning to the FDC politics, I'm sure everybody will, whether you like FDC or don't like it, will accept that the level of internal democracy within FDC is unparalleled in our political arena. It's unparalleled. We are a young party, started only in 2004, 2005, just 15 years. The other day they were celebrating 15 years. We have had change of leadership of the party democratically. We have never had any petition. Every loser congratulates the winner. Even when there are some complaints, they are addressed satisfactorily through internal mechanisms. And so that vibrancy of competition goes through the whole system. And elections have been taking place all over the country. Some incumbents have lost, indeed. Honorable Sizomu Gashom in Mbale, I think it's Bungoko or something, lost. There is another member of parliament in Kasese, he lost. There is a lot of dynamic contest.
Okay.
But all of it is for good. You know, that's as it should be. You know, people should exercise freedom and contest. And if there are challenges, they should be addressed internally so that indeed we minimize any possibility of having independent
All right, Dr. Besigye,
candidates.
I want to thank you so much for the time you've given us to talk to the people of Uganda and also to give us an opportunity to come to you here. You always add value to our discussion and understanding some of the things. I want to give you maybe a minute or less than a minute for you to make your concluding remarks. Otherwise, I risked having started a conversation on Thursday and ending it on Friday.
Yes, yes, Patrick, first of all, you know, as usual, I'm extremely grateful to NTV for this time to talk to the NTV audience. I would like to end by underlining the urgency in our country to do something to change course. You know, the desperation in the country is extremely unprecedented. When some people are drumming, saying, oh, party after party, people are dying. You know, this is why, you know, the detachment in our country is extremely dangerous. With people, they are living in the you know, pre-French Revolution times when people were starving and they are cakes. Why are they crying for food? And why don't they give them cakes? That is what is happening here. You know, there is desperation, total desperation. We are going to be, we sat here and addressed the state of our nation some time back and pointed out that there is money to save Ugandans, which is being wrongly applied. Totally wrong priorities. I am, in the next week, going to be talking to Ugandans, and especially young people that are desperate. There is absolutely no reason why we cannot change this. We can change it. We don't have to go by the calendar of our oppressors to change them. And we should not think that we will use what we don't have to get what we want. We must use what we have. So we are going to be talking next week. I will be talking to you and chatting away, starting to roll out what we called Plan B. We are going to roll it out. And it will roll and roll and roll until, first of all, everybody appreciates what is being done. And hopefully, at the earliest, I would like to believe, change the situation in this country.
Okay. Retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, we thank you so much for your time. You know, we have reached that part every 5 years when we get millions of people coming to you because they want to dazzle you and get your vote and you give them a mandate. There are about 1.6 elective positions in the country. In other words, you'll get almost 3 million people more coming to convince you, to tell you that they are going to change your lives. In most cases, they won't. But they will be having a manifesto. They will be having a record. You know them. You know their background. It is important to listen to them so that you can take your pick from an informed position. You have a civic duty and a civic responsibility to go and vote. But most importantly, I suppose, to keep peace. We have just one country called Uganda, and that's what binds us together. We're all Ugandans. How I wish Uganda, we can always keep it peaceful, even when we seek and follow our constitutional and civic responsibility that is required of us. Good night, Uganda.